Okay, so with this video, we're going to start studying about the larynx. Now, for some reason, a lot of students are scared of the larynx, but believe me, once you visualize it completely, it is probably the easiest chapter to remember. So in this video, let's start talking about the cartilages and the joints of larynx. Now, first of all, larynx is an organ that provides a protective sphincter at the inlet of air passage and is responsible for voice production. Okay, so you can imagine it to be a sort of cylinder that's sitting on top of your trachea, which is the windpipe, and it performs two functions here. It acts as a protective sphincter and it is also responsible for voice production. Okay, now it extends from the tongue. Here is the tongue, right? So it extends from the tongue from the level of the upper border of the epiglottis. Epiglottis is one of the cartilages which forms the larynx, to the level of the sixth cervical vertebrae posteriorly. Okay, so it extends from the level of the tongue at the upper border of the epiglottis up to the level of the sixth cervical vertebrae. Now, if we come to its relations, we see that above, as I told you, it is continuous with the pharynx through the laryngeal inlet, right? Here was the tongue, so above it, posterior to that is the pharynx. Below it is continuous with the trachea because, as I told you, it sits on top of the windpipe. So below it is continuous with trachea at the level of the sixth cervical vertebrae. Anteriorly, it is covered by skin, superficial fascia, deep fascia, and infrahyoid muscles. And on each side, this is an important point, on each side it is related to the thyroid lobe. So our thyroid lobe basically extends from the middle of the thyroid cartilage up till the fourth or the fifth tracheal ring. Okay, and it is attached by the ligament of Berry to the cricoid cartilage, if you remember. So on each side it is related to the thyroid lobe. Now coming to the structure of larynx. Now if I were to ask you to touch the top part of your ear, okay, I'm not saying the lobe downwards, I'm asking you to touch the pinna of your ear, right? You would feel that it's sort of firm, it provides support, but at the same time it's quite flexible, it's movable. So the same way, the larynx is made up of about 9 cartilages. Okay, so its basic framework, as you can see in this diagram, is made up of cartilages. Now these cartilages are held together by certain ligaments and certain membranes, and they are moved by muscles. Overall, it is lined by the mucous membrane. So this is why when I told you about its function as a voice production organ, it basically has certain folds in it which are altered by the muscles, right? They are moved by muscles, and this causes vibrations that allow the production of sound. So the basic framework of the larynx is cartilages which are held together by ligaments, membranes, and moved by muscles. Now let's come to its cartilages. Now in this video we're talking about the cartilages and the joints between the cartilages. So the cartilaginous framework of the larynx is basically made up of 3 unpaired cartilages and 3 paired cartilages. Okay, so 3 unpaired are 3 and 3 paired form a total of 6. 3 plus 6 is total 9 cartilages, right? So the larynx is made up of 3 unpaired cartilages and 3 paired cartilages. In the unpaired cartilages, we have the thyroid cartilage, we have the cricoid cartilage, and posteriorly we have the epiglottis, which makes it a protective organ, right? So we have the thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage, and the epiglottis. And the 3 small paired cartilages are the arytenoid. This is the arytenoid, okay? It's sitting on top of the cricoid and related to the epiglottis. So this is the arytenoid cartilage, which is the pyramid shaped one. On top of that is the corniculate cartilage, okay, and extending from here till the epiglottis is an aryepiglottic fold. So embedded within that is our final cartilage, which is the cuneiform cartilage. Okay, so don't worry, we'll go into the details of each and every cartilage, but for now there are 3 unpaired, which are the thyroid, cricoid, and epiglottis, and 3 small paired, which are the arytenoid, corniculate, and cuneiform. Now starting with the thyroid cartilage. Now anytime you see a picture of the larynx, the first thing we notice is the thyroid cartilage. So it's the largest of the laryngeal cartilages and is formed by two laminae, okay, the right and the left laminae, which is made up of hyaline cartilage and are widely separated posteriorly but joined anteriorly. The most superior point of the site of fusion between the two laminae projects forward as the laryngeal prominence, and just superior to the laryngeal prominence is the superior thyroid notch. So let me show you in the diagram. So we are saying that the thyroid cartilage is formed by two laminae, the right and the left laminae. Okay, and where they join, there's a prominence called the laryngeal prominence. Now, this laryngeal prominence is also called the Adam's apple, and it is more apparent in men. Okay. Now, also, it is said that just superior to the laryngeal prominence is the superior thyroid notch. So here you can see that as the two laminae join, superiorly it is deficient, and this is called the thyroid notch. Now again, in men and women, this as well is different. So in men, the angle is 90 degree, and in women it's 120 degrees. Also, you would see that thyroid cartilage, it's sort of formed only anteriorly, but posteriorly it is deficient, right? So it is formed by right and left laminae, which are widely separated posteriorly but joined anteriorly. So the laminae join anteriorly, but posteriorly it is incomplete. Finally, the posterior margin of each laminae of the thyroid cartilage is elongated to form a superior horn and an inferior horn. And the medial surface of the inferior horn has a facet for articulation of the cricoid cartilage. So you see, this is the posterior view, and the posterior laminae are elongated, once upwards and one downwards, to form a superior horn and an inferior horn. Now on the medial surface of the inferior horn, we have a facet that articulates with our next cartilage, which is the cricoid. Okay, so the inferior horn articulates with the facet on the cricoid cartilage, and the lateral surface of each thyroid lamina is marked by a ridge, which is the oblique line. Okay, this is the site of attachment for certain muscles. So this is it we have for the thyroid cartilage. We saw it was two laminae, and there was a laryngeal prominence where they joined, and superiorly it was deficient with the thyroid notch. The posterior surface had the superior horn and the inferior horn, and on the lateral surface of the thyroid lamina there was a ridge, which was the oblique line. Now moving on to our cricoid cartilage. The cricoid cartilage lies just beneath the thyroid cartilage. So you can see it in this diagram. This is thyroid and this is cricoid. Now the thing about cricoid is it is shaped like a signet ring, right? So when you see a ring on your hand, you would see the outer surface is sort of broader, and the inner surface, which is facing the palm, is narrow, right? So the posterior surface, it might have certain gems or certain stones that make it more broader. So the same way, the cricoid cartilage is shaped like a signet ring with a broad lamina posteriorly and a narrow arch anteriorly, and it lies just beneath the thyroid cartilage. Now this has two facets, okay? The upper facet articulates with the next cartilage, which is the arytenoid cartilage, and on the lateral surface, it has a facet for the articulation with the thyroid cartilage. So just now we've seen that the inferior horn of the thyroid cartilage has a facet, right? And the lateral surface of the cricoid cartilage has a facet. So this is where they articulate and form the cricothyroid joint, okay? And also the upper surface has another facet which articulates with the paired cartilage, which is the arytenoid cartilage. Now coming to our last unpaired cartilage, which is the epiglottis. Okay, if we were to see it from a cut section of the larynx, we would see something like this. This is the epiglottis. So the epiglottis is a leaf-shaped lamina of elastic cartilage. Okay, it's made up of elastic cartilage behind the root of the tongue. Its stalk is attached to the back of the thyroid cartilage by the thyroepiglottic ligament. So its stalk is attached to the back of the thyroid cartilage by the thyroepiglottic ligament. And the sides are attached to the arytenoid cartilages by the aryepiglottic folds of mucous membrane. So let me show you that here. This is the arytenoid cartilage and this is the epiglottis. So its sides are related to the arytenoid cartilage by the fold of mucous membrane, which is called the aryepiglottic fold. Okay. Now the upper edge of the epiglottis is free. As you can see here, the upper edge of the epiglottis is free. However, the covering of the mucous membrane passes forward onto the posterior surface of the tongue as the median glossoepiglottic fold. And the depression on each side of the fold is called the valleculae. So, although the epiglottis is free superiorly, there is a covering of mucous membrane which passes forward and attaches it to the tongue, which is called the median glossoepiglottic fold. And on either side of it, the depression you see is the valleculae. Now we are done with the unpaired cartilages, right? We've talked about the thyroid cartilage, the cricoid cartilage, and the epiglottis. Now let's talk about the paired cartilages, which were the arytenoid, corniculate, and the cuneiform. So the arytenoid cartilages are pyramid-shaped paired cartilages. Okay, so you can see it in this diagram. They're pyramid-shaped and they have three surfaces. Okay, a base, an apex, and two processes, which are the vocal process and the muscular process. So if you see it in the lateral view, this is what you would see. It's got an apex, a base, and from here they are extending two processes, which are the vocal process and the muscular process. Okay, so this makes it a very important organ of voice production because of its movements, which I'll discuss in the next slides, right? So now its base is concave and it articulates with the cricoid cartilage, and the apex articulates with the corniculate cartilage, right? So we saw there was a facet on the upper surface of the cricoid cartilage for articulation with the arytenoid cartilage, and at the apex it articulates with the corniculate cartilage. Now in its posterior surface, there were two processes. One was the vocal process at the anterior angle of the base, to which the vocal ligament is attached. Okay, so anterior angle of the base, there's one process which is the vocal process, and its attachment is the vocal ligament. Now when the vocal ligament tense or relax, they change or they alter the expired air into vibrations, and that is the root of voice production, which is why the arytenoid cartilage is one of the most important cartilage associated with voice production. The second is the muscular process. This is the muscular process at the lateral angle of the base. So at the anterior angle there was the vocal process, and at the lateral angle there is the muscular process. Now as you can realize, this is a very important cartilage and we'll keep coming back to this actually. So now coming to the corniculate cartilage. Okay, so the corniculate cartilage are two conical shaped cartilages which articulate with the arytenoid cartilage. Right, this is the arytenoid, and on top of it there are two conical shaped cartilages which articulate with it, and they give attachment to the aryepiglottic fold, which is extending from the epiglottis up till the arytenoid cartilage. Next, finally, we have the cuneiform cartilages, which are two small rod-shaped cartilages that are found within the aryepiglottic fold. So when we were talking about epiglottis, we saw that it had a fold, which was the aryepiglottic fold, extending from the sides of the epiglottis up till the arytenoid cartilage. So these corniculate cartilages give attachment to the aryepiglottic fold. And within the aryepiglottic fold, we have embedded the next cartilage, which is the cuneiform cartilages. So these as well are paired cartilages, which are rod-shaped and are embedded within the aryepiglottic fold and serve to strengthen them. Okay, so with this we finish talking about all the cartilages. Now let's come to the joints of larynx. So as we have seen that the inferior horn of the thyroid cartilage articulates with the facet on the lateral border of the cricoid cartilage. So here this forms the cricothyroid joint. Now this is a synovial joint present between the inferior corner of thyroid and the lateral and the facet on the base of the cricoid, and in this the movement is possible only around the transverse axis, like so. Now this would actually allow the vocal ligaments to either be tense or relax. So this is why it is important in voice production. And coming to the cricoarytenoid joint, this is a synovial joint present between the base of the arytenoid and a facet on the superior border of the cricoid cartilage. Okay, and the arytenoid cartilage is actually very special because it can move in a lot of different ways. So it can rotate, or it can slide, or it can move like so. So this we'll actually discuss in the next video when we're talking about how the muscles alter the arytenoid cartilage to produce voice. But for now, you can remember that the arytenoid cartilages articulate with the cricoid, forming a cricoarytenoid joint where the arytenoid cartilage can rotate and slide to meet one another. So with this, we actually finish all the cartilages and the joints of the larynx. Let's quickly summarize what we've studied. So we saw that the larynx was an organ of protection and voice production. We saw its relation superiorly with the pharynx, inferiorly with the trachea at the level of the 6 cervical vertebrae. Each side it was related to the thyroid lobe. We saw that it was made up of cartilages held together by ligaments and membranes and moved by muscles. We saw that it had 3 unpaired cartilages and 3 paired cartilages. The first unpaired was the thyroid cartilage, formed of 2 laminae, which met at the laryngeal prominence and superiorly had the thyroid notch. From the posterior surface extended the superior horn and the inferior horn. We saw the next cartilage was the cricoid cartilage, which was shaped like a signet ring. It had a facet superiorly, which articulated with the arytenoid cartilage, and laterally, which articulated with the inferior horn of the thyroid. Then we saw the epiglottis, which was a leaf-shaped cartilage, and its 2 sides were connected to the arytenoid cartilage by the fold of mucous membrane called the aryepiglottic fold, and it was connected to the root of tongue by the glossoepiglottic fold. Finally, we saw arytenoid cartilages, which are pyramid-shaped cartilages with vocal process and a muscular process, and corniculate cartilages, which gave attachment to the aryepiglottic fold, within which was embedded our final cartilage, which was the cuneiform cartilage. We also saw the joints of larynx, which were cricothyroid and cricoarytenoid. Now, I gave a lot of emphasis to all of these cartilages and joints because this forms our basic understanding of the rest of the chapter. Okay, so make sure to totally understand this before proceeding on to the next parts. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.